Hello everybody, so here is Black Angel and I'm here to talk to you about ESFPs. So who are ESFPs? ESFPs are our second type that is extroverted sensing dominant. So extroverted sensing dominant means to be extremely active, physically or mostly physically. If extroverted intuitive are our intellectually active types, the extroverted sensing types are instead physically active. So ESFPs as extroverted sensing dominants are extremely active physically. But that's not the only thing that there is to say about extroverted sensing in the leading position. Extroverted sensing is also called volitional sensing, and it's basically the willpower. So having the willpower for themselves and for others to achieve goals, to do things, and to actually find goals. They can have their goal and give that goal to others. So they give others goals to achieve. For example, if an ESFP wants to create a band, they can find the people and pull the people, drag the people into this project and create this band, and they're going to make these people feel like having that band is their personal goal of these people. That's how strong the willpower of an extroverted sensing dominant is. And like I said, ESFPs are extroverted sensing dominants. Another thing that extroverted sensing in the leading position is political influence. Like we said for ESCPs, political influence means having the ability to use their social status to achieve whatever it is that they want to achieve. They are different from ESCPs in that they are feelers. So instead of using logic to apply their extroverted sensing, they use instead introverted feeling. What is introverted feeling in the auxiliary position? Introverted feeling in the auxiliary position means that the person makes a creative use of their sense of right and wrong and their sense of attraction, repulsion towards things. So they're not constant in this thing. They can like something in the morning and hate it in the evening. They can like a person in the morning and hate the same person in the evening. So they're extremely creative in this sense. They're also the type that enjoys witches hunts. So who is the blasphemer that did this thing that is so wrong and so horrible? And then when they finally find the person, they change their mind on the whole matter. That's what they are about. The ESFP is extremely creative in that sense. So they have changing tastes. They have a big variety of attractions and repulsions during the day. They are the kind of person that needs to be constantly conquered or constantly. That's something the INTJs are good at. They need to be constantly kept focused on someone, because otherwise they change their attitude completely towards anyone in any moment. So you can be with this ESFP in the morning and be their right arm and be their best friend, the most important person in their life, and then all of a sudden in the afternoon you become their arch enemy and they hate you to no hand. So the INTJ is good at handling that because they like to stay behind the curtain. So they wait in a corner and they do not have this very presence in the ESFP's life. Anyway, yeah, that's introverted feeling in the critic position. The combination of these two functions, the extroverted sensing in the leading position and introvert feeling in the secondary position makes for a very aggressive trainer. So they tend to be extremely aggressive trainer. They enjoy helping others reaching their goals, and they like to help others reaching their goals. And the way that they use to do that is application of force, extroverted sensing again. So this application of force happens via yelling, via imposing their will, via pushing for the person to reach their goal. And they really have a non-stop attitude, like there is no break, there is no stop, there is no waiting, there is no such thing as stopping and waiting. We have to achieve our goal, so now I'm going to whip you into reaching it. That's basically the attitude of ESFPs. They are considered extremely hedonistic, but they're actually not that hedonistic. The ESFP is a little bit more hedonistic because they make a lower use of logic than the ESFP. Again, I don't like to consider feelers stupid because for the most part they are actually extremely intelligent individuals. And they are particularly intelligent, obviously, in social interactions, so they have a very high emotional intelligence. And that's not something to underestimate. But when it comes to ESFPs in particular, we're talking about extroverted thinking. So they have a very grounded logic. They base their lives on facts, on what is exactly the way that exactly that way. Sorry, the cat was making noises. So on what it is exactly. So on facts, on things that are reported and recorded exactly that way. So they're not so absent-minded or random as they may look. They're random in a social sense. So they are basically walking parties because they're always positive, always in a good mood, always keeping everybody upbeat. If they are down and they're very sad, you're gonna be destroy yourself because when they basically wear their emotions on the sleeve. So wherever they go, they bring their mood and how they feel internally. So that's I forgot what I was about to say, honestly. But anyway, yeah, that's basically what they are about. They're not tornadoes like the ESFJ, and this is where they're similar but not equal. The ESFJ is a tornado, literally a tornado of emotional pressure, of emotional whirlwind. It's an emotional whirlwind. Whereas the ESFP is instead a tornado of strength. They have a presence, an imposing presence, and they tend to impose themselves on others, literally. One trait that extroverted sensing dominants have in common, and here I'm talking both about ESTPs and ESFPs, is that they do not refrain from using power and strength in any circumstance. So whatever it is that they're doing, they're going to use strength to obtain it. So that's the ESFP. They're also very sweet individuals. They do have that soft side that is obviously part of being a feeler, but their tenderness and their kind heart is more seen in this pushing attitude towards helping others reaching goals. So that's a characteristic of ESFPs. I'm sorry, I'm having cat issues today. So yeah, back to our ESFPs. Their inferior function is introverted intuition, which means that they enjoy environments where, sorry, cat issues are increasing. Here I'm back. They enjoy environments where they can express their opinion without feeling judged about it. That's a characteristic of introverted intuition. Introverted intuition creates environment where everybody can say what they think and they're not going to be judged. That's one trait of introvert intuition. If the introvert intuitive inferior person, so the ESFP, is not well accepted in an environment and they don't feel accepted in this sense of being able to express their opinion, they're going to leave and say, this is not my place, this is not my world, I don't want to be here. So that's one thing about introvert intuition inferior. Another trait of an introvert intuition inferior is a lack of ability, a low ability to foresee the consequences of their own behavior. So they're never entirely sure where their behavior is heading or leading and what the hell is going on with their behavior. So they're always happy and always trying to achieve stuff, and then they go and they risk destroying themselves against the wall and and basically killing themselves or something because they consider themselves just indestructible. That's another thing to consider about ESFPs. They consider themselves indestructible. And therefore they tend to throw themselves into trouble without thinking. So that's another thing. Extroverted thinking in the tertiary position. Extroverted thinking in the tertiary position means that their self-esteem is based on how much they know about any subject they stumble into. So the more they know, the higher their self-esteem. And here is an appeal to all ESFPs and ENFPs. This is something that you guys have in common. Make sure to learn as much as you can. Now, ESFPs with that strong extrovert sensing have the ability to force themselves to learn about things. They have the willpower to do that, so they can sit there and basically tell themselves, now you gotta learn this stuff, and they're gonna sit there and learn everything in detail. It's gonna take time to them. They're sensors, like the ESFJ, and like we said for the ESFJ and the ISFJ, these are sensors, so it takes time to them to elaborate things. So we're not talking about elaborating here. We're talking about basically learning by heart. That's what they need to do. Gather as much information as they possibly can. Doesn't matter if it makes sense or not. That's not what matters for an ESFP, so don't bother about that. Just learn as much as you can, and your self-esteem is going to be shot to the top and be unbreakable. That's how it works for ESFPs and ENFPs also. Anyway, this is one of the traits of extroverted thinking in the tertiary position. Another thing is having their turf. So one thing that ESFPs need is to have their territory. They need to have an environment in which to operate where they're basically the leader, the undiscussed leader. So whatever they decide, whatever they choose, whatever they say is right, is going to be right for everybody. It doesn't matter if they change their mind. They can change their mind 20 times a day and change the rules, and everybody's going to accept whatever it is that they decide as a new rule. That's heaven for an ESFP's self-esteem. That everybody does what they say, and nobody complains about whatever it is that they want as a rule to be applied. That's another extrovert thinking in the tertiary position trait. I have another couple of things to say about this function. Another thing that we can say about this function is that they are bound to facts and data, and they do not use syllogism logic, so abstract logic. So when they act, their actions may not have sense for a TI user. And I've seen this happen because I have a friend that has a boss, and he's an ISTP, and the boss is an ESFP, and he doesn't understand why his boss is behaving that way. This is something that is peculiar about TI demonstrative, actually. In society we call it TI demonstrative, but anyway, INTJs have the ability to figure out the reason behind anyone's behavior and to justify anyone's behavior. So that's what the INTJ does for one of the things that the INTJ does for the ESFP's self-esteem. Because the ESFP needs to be confirmed that even if their behavior doesn't make sense, it makes sense anyway. That's also connected to TI vulnerable in socionics if you want to look into that, but we're talking about MBTI here, so let's stick to the value functions to extrovert thinking in the tertiary position. So their self-esteem is bound to knowing that they're not being judged because of the lack of logic in their behavior. That's also something about them. Yeah, I could have more because this is a very complex function to have in the third position. It's a very complex and very interesting function in the third position, actually. Anyway, yeah, we will see probably a little bit more when we will talk about ENFPs in the next days. So, yeah, I think this is pretty much everything I want to say about ESFP's functions, and now I'm going to pass to anagrams. I think anagram 8 would be a good anagram for an ESFP, along with anagram 2. Anagram 2 is also a possibility for an ESFP because regardless if you share and accept their way of action or if you don't, they are anyway trying to help others, that they're manipulative, that they're pushing, that they're enforcing, that they're imposing, whatever the case may be, they are anyway trying to help others. So anagram 2 is most definitely a possibility for an ESFP. What else? Like I said, anagram 8 for the respect matter, and that's connected to their extrovert thinking tertiary function. Anagram 9 is also a possibility because I didn't say it, and we will see it more in depth with the ENFP. But extrovert thinking in the tertiary position is also a positive attitude of the public opinion towards them. So they need to know that they in some way are acting according to the public opinion, which is an anagram 9 trait. I would consider it an extreme case though, because anagram 9 is the peace anagram. It seeks internal peace, and it's not something easy to attain for an extroverted sensing dominant. But if they're dualized and they find their dual, it is possible for them to achieve that. So I wouldn't exclude it completely, just consider it a rare case. What else? I think I will leave it at this. Anagram 2, pole position, anagram 8, secondary, anagram 9, another option. These are the most likely. Yeah, with whom do ESFPs get along? With anyone that has the strength to accept their impositions and their strong temperament, because they're people of very strong temperament. So they get along with INTJs, they get along with ENTJs, they get along with ISFPs to an extent. Mostly because ISFPs are quite weird individuals. They're not that sociable. That's the point. They're probably the least sociable of all feeler types. The ISFP. But anyway, yeah. ESFPs are pretty jolly individuals. They're fun to be with, and they're constantly happy. They only have this thing that they tend to be a little bit strong and having a strong grip and imposing their will in some way. So that's something not everybody can handle. For example, INFPs have a strong difficulty with that. That's what makes them clash with ESFPs. The same applies to INTPs. INTPs also have difficulties with ESFPs. Yeah, I think this is pretty much everything that I have. I would say that they mostly get along with their quadra. they would get along pretty well also with ESTJs, I believe. Um, but ESTJs are pretty much workaholics, so they're not very inclined towards fun and fun activities. They're more inclined towards relaxation. That's something that doesn't really go hand in hand with ESFPs, but they could get along pretty well because of that strong T there that makes ESFPs feel at ease. I give a strong importance to the thinking and the feeling functions, mostly to the thinking function, because they are, in my opinion, the core of our way of thinking. So, um, meaning that they give the tone to an orientation that clashes more than anything else. And the sensing function, the perceptive functions, meaning intuition and sensing, also are pretty important. But I consider last the feeling functions because clashes in the feeling area are more difficult to determine. Meaning that the attraction repulsion attitude of an ISFP, for example, versus the pushing tornado of an ENFJ are very similar to see. So it's more difficult that an ISFP and an ENFJ recognize that they're clashing in an ethical sense than it is for an ISTP and an ESTJ to figure out they're clashing big time. They're going to have an easier time seeing that. So I think that the thinking functions are more important or more influencing, not more important. They're all equally important, but they're more influencing in relationships than the ethical functions are. Except for those types, obviously, that have the ethical function in the vulnerable position. In that case, things are different. Anyway, I think I will close this here also because the garden starts becoming a little bit crowded. And I will talk to you soon. Bye.